What's going on, everybody? This is Sean from Room 9 Podcast, and about to introduce to you episode 14. 14 episodes, baby. We are plugging along, moving along, getting along. And I am especially excited to introduce this next episode. I sit down with my BFF, my best friend in the world, my number one supporter, my number one fan, Christine. And she has been with me through thick and thin. She has been nothing but an incredible human being who has just always believed in me, has always had faith in me, and just was waiting for me to have it in myself, those same things. And this is a very emotional episode with her, and she talks about my addiction, what things were like kind of in the beginning, how she started to come to find out it was actually happening as I was hiding it from her. She talks about how she would go about things differently, and it's just pretty awesome to hear from somebody who is so close to me. It's extremely emotional, so I hope you really enjoy it. Please get on our website, room9podcast.com, and give us support. We officially have a support page where you can help us out. One of the biggest things I hate doing is asking for help with money, and I just had to do it because I just want to get this message out here and to keep up with things with equipment, whether it's a laptop, whether it's microphones, whether it's the soundboard, whether it's advertising to get this message of hope out there to people who need to hear it. It costs money, and unfortunately I need to humbly ask for help. And so if you get on our website, room9podcast.com, if you click on the support page, there is not only a way you can donate, there's a letter I typed out that explains everything, because I realize nobody just wants to hand somebody in recovery money. That sounds like the most absurd, crazy idea ever. So what I have done is had somebody in charge of it who is not an addict, who is a responsible adult, who has never had trouble with any kind of drugs, and that's actually Christine. She's completely in charge of all the money. I cannot access any of the money without her approval, without her being with me as I use things to purchase it. I'm also going to keep everything public, whether it's receipts, whether it's the balance, no matter what it is going to be out there for everybody to look at. In the letter to a donor on the support page, I have her email, so you're more than welcome to contact her and stay in touch with her and ask her anything you actually would like to ask her about what's going on and what her role is as far as being the Room 9. I guess we're going to go Room 9 treasurer. We'll go with that. That sounds good. So she is officially the Room 9 treasurer. Please, 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 just even $1 helps, whatever it can be, really helps out, and it's awesome. And I'm so thankful for everything that's going on. And if you can't do that, share this podcast with everybody you possibly can, because the more people that hear it, the more people get helped. So once again, episode 14 with Christine. Listen to it, enjoy it. It was we recorded this a little bit ago, but it's still worth listening to, because there's just that connection her and I have, and you can really feel it throughout the whole episode. So I have definitely listened to this. I have definitely seen how far I've come as a host, as an editor, as all those other things. So I hope you enjoy, love it. Give us your feedback. We're on iTunes, we're on Google Play, we're on Stitcher, we're on Spotify, we're on Podbean, we're on whatever you possibly can imagine. If you come up with something we are not on, please let us know, because I'll get us on there. All right, guys, thank you so much. Peace out. Okay, that's inappropriate. What is wrong with you? Oh my goodness.
If I could do it.
Yeah. It's awfully girthy.
Yeah, that would be scary.
It would be scary. Be frightened by that.
I would.
Oh boy. That's one way to start a podcast.
Yeah, with girth.
With girth. Oh my gosh, baby. Well.
Hi.
This is Room 9 coming at you with another episode. But now I'm getting to sit down with my lovely BFF. She banged it in to work today, so it's pretty exciting.
Very exciting.
I get to stare at you for a while without you calling me a creep. Have an excuse this time? I got some tea steeping.
Yep.
We do. And we're going to do some chopping up.
Let's chop.
Some good chopping. About to happen. Some tough chopping, huh?
Yeah.
Good old topic of my addiction on this one for the masses to hear. be a good one. I kind of said to you earlier that I feel like this was probably, the hardest for you out of everybody, even my family.
Yeah, I guess that's hard to evaluate as to who it was the hardest on, but it was a struggle. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say so. 'Cause you are the one who ended up having to call the cops on me.
Yeah, I was.
So that probably was pretty awesome. That probably felt good.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, felt great.
But what, I don't know, kind of wanted to just get your point of view on everything. I guess I've mentioned so many times in different episodes how even before heroin and it was just pills, that there was probably 2 or 3 times when you just looked at me and I could have said I have a problem and could have stayed in the house with you and got it taken care of and worked on things that way. In hindsight, I look back, I don't know if that
I don't think that would have worked.
would have worked.
No,
but
I agree.
There was definitely times where I could have been honest and open about my struggles with addiction, and I wasn't. And that kind of always brings me back to the pride thing that I had, an issue with pride. And that's kind of that's the first thing in my one song that I wrote. Look what happens when you don't give up pride. It's kind of where that simple line stemmed from, that emotion of, all of this. Even like in Horizons, I noticed I have pride still. I'm like, how the hell, after all of this, do I still have like pride to admit to mistakes? Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, I don't think you're alone in that. I just think it's been thrown in your face and being forced to deal with it.
Mm-hmm. Which I always say is a good thing.
Yeah.
So being forced to have to face those changes. But what was it? I don't know. When did you first start noticing like something was off with me?
Well, I would honestly say that pretty consistent conversation between the two of us prior to a deeper to the pill/heroin addiction would be alcohol. We had quite a few consistent conversations about drinking, and me saying like, we don't go forward until we address drinking. And you would always say, well, I'm never drunk, doesn't affect us. You had a multitude of answers for me. And I would say like, we don't discuss moving forward or getting married or any of that stuff until the alcohol thing is addressed. So that was way before. I can think of conversations from a long time ago that we had about alcohol, which I don't think you would have viewed it as an addiction. I don't know if I would have said that you were an alcoholic. I don't know if I would have phrased it that way, but it definitely created some problems for us. And it was a discussion between us well before, the pills and the heroin manifested, I would say.
Yeah, I know I mentioned that too in a few former episodes about how we've had those conversations. I remember talking about it with my counselor a lot, and I didn't realize really how much it did affect me and change me until I was actually sober looking back at it, which was such proof to me and concrete evidence of like trying to tell an addict something when they're in the middle of addiction is almost like you have to say something, I feel, but it's almost like talking to nothing because it's so hard to breach into somebody's mind and be like, all right, look, you have a problem. Especially when it comes to drugs, we like protect it so much.
Yeah. I think the rubber would have hit the road with alcohol. Like I don't think we would have progressed any further in my view. So I feel like the pills and the heroin were necessity to bring the entire picture of addiction forth. Because if it didn't progress to heroin and pills, I still don't know. It maybe would have dragged on for a little bit longer, but I don't know if we really would have had a future because I was pretty serious about the drinking thing. And I remember vividly the last time we had a conversation about it, we were in the car. And I said, that's not what I want for my future. Things aren't going to move forward until, and you said, you want me to stop drinking completely? And I said, yeah, I think I do. And you said, okay. And I said, what does okay mean? And you just said, okay. I heard what you said. And I said, you don't have a response to that? And you're like, no. I said, okay. And that was kind of, that was, so I think, I think that would have been an issue going forward if because obviously that's under the same umbrella. Mm-hmm. So I think that would have created some issues if you like never went to pills or heroin and it was only alcohol. I think that would have come up as maybe in a different way, but I think it definitely would have been an issue going forward.
You know, I always remember being so perplexed, like, what the hell is the big deal?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there were a lot of, like a lot of times when you were drinking during the day and you'd say, well, if I have a couple beers while I'm cleaning the house, or if I have a couple beers during the day, what's the big deal? Because you wouldn't really drink at night. You kind of more switch to smoking weed a lot at night.
Mm-hmm.
And you said, like, I never get drunk, which I don't know if I've ever seen you drunk.
Yeah, I've always been pretty good about that.
Yeah.
Never liked hangovers. I never saw the point in them.
So that was always your response to me was...
That's how I justified it, yeah.
Right.
I never get drunk. I don't become like an asshole to
Right.
you or anything, or treat you badly when I'm drinking. And that was how I always justified it, in my mind. Because I remember making that decision, I think I shared with you when I was still married with Michelle, and Megan slept over the one night, and I woke up, I think I was like 25, 24. And I remember I woke up and they were all both mad at me. I had no idea why. So apparently I was like an asshole. Got drunk and I was an asshole. And I was just like, oh, that's just so my father, and I'm not going to do this anymore. So really, there's very few times, since then that I got drunk to where I didn't remember something, where I was, angry, or I had a hangover. I just stuck with beer at that point because I knew, like, really to get that wasted on beer takes a lot. So I knew if I just get like a little buzz and then maintain that, but I didn't really see all the mentally, and I can throw smoking weed in that too, is how much that kind of clouded my thinking, my thought processes, everything like that, my memory and stuff. And I feel like that's something I want. Even I talked to you about smoking weed again. Like, I'm very positive smoking weed would not lead me to do anything else, but I don't know if I can go like with smoking weed twice a month or whatever. I feel like, at least at this point in my life, that it would end up being every day again.
Yeah.
So it's kind of something I want to stay away from, at least at this point. I don't know what many years down the road will bring, but that's for another time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was
years down the road right now. So
yes, we do.
Well, in actuality, all we have is now. But that's
thank
for
you.
a different podcast.
Thank you, Sensei.
You're welcome.
Guru. But yeah, so that kind of led, alcohol is definitely a no-no for me, honestly. I tell people all the time, like, addiction is such a cunning thing. It pops in my head all the time, like, oh, you can probably start drinking in moderation now. Like, all the time. It's so funny how that happens. It's just like, it's such a con artist.
Yeah.
Yeah, come on, you're good, dude. You can do this. In which, maybe it will. Maybe I can do that for a year or two, where I just drink in moderation. But I feel eventually that's just going to lead to every day again, which is what I don't want. And I know, obviously, from what you just said, you don't want. No, I don't think that's doable for you. No, I was just going to say, I have always had a weird relationship to alcohol. It's not anything that I have ever thought about doing. It's more so for me because of other people doing it and kind of being in that social situation. Like, I've never truly enjoyed the way I feel after drinking alcohol. So for us as a couple, the only time I would really drink is when you encourage me to, or if we were going out in a social situation where everybody else was as well. So it's not, I think for me, that's what made it more apparent. I think if I drank frequently, I don't know if it would have been an issue for me, or I don't know if I would have noticed with you it being an issue. If that was something that I did more frequently, I don't know if I would have noticed it. Yeah, because you don't really drink at all anymore.
No.
It's really rare.
And it's not really because I can't. I just really don't want to.
Don't enjoy it.
I've never liked the buzz. It's never, I guess personality-wise, I'm someone who always likes to kind of feel in control. And the buzz from alcohol has never been overly enjoyable. And I feel like some of my stupidest decisions have come from that. A lot different than like smoking weed or something like that. It's just a different thing for me. And it's always had a negative impact on me physically afterward, which has not made it where you suffer through if that's what you're doing all the time. But at this point, why? If I don't like it in general, I guess I'm confident enough at the point I'm at in my life where I'm like, no, I don't want to do it. And I don't have The little devil on my shoulder, aka Sean.
You just call me the devil?
Yeah. Well, yeah,
My
the
goodness,
little
that's terrible.
the little devil /
I'm
angel.
in love with the devil. When did let's kind of keep traveling down this road. When did you kind of start having the feeling that it was more than just pot and alcohol?
I would say when it became most apparent to me would be the summer of 2017 was when I would think I knew something was up, but I guess I didn't want to know something was up would be the counter to that. But I definitely knew it's kind of around the point where I would say at that point it was only like nickel and diming, but some weird stuff went missing, but small amounts. I would say you were very different with me. You had your glimmers of being Sean, but you were very pulled away from me compared to normal. Like I use the example of our friends Audrey and Trevor's wedding. I think I maybe saw you through dinner and I didn't really see you the rest of the night. And I think I made a comment to you on our way out to the wedding. I mean, normally for you and I, when we're together, there's a lot of conversation. We had like a 45-minute drive out there. There really wasn't a whole lot of conversation. It was very unlike us.
Mm-hmm.
And I hardly saw you at the wedding at all. And when I did see you, you were kind of out of it. And in my head, I remember kind of tearing up and thinking like something's wrong. But of course, then there's that part of you that tells you like, nope, nothing's wrong. Everything's great.
Everything's good.
Everything's great. He's fine. It's just, everybody goes through these rough patches or whatever. But I remember thinking like something is not right. I literally, like, I think I saw you after we sat together and ate dinner. I maybe saw you for a total of 20, 30 minutes the rest of that night. And I wouldn't say we got into an argument on the way home because you're not one for arguing. I think you went more quiet when I expressed my concerns. But that's when I think after that wedding is when I knew something was going on.
Something was really up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then as the summer progressed, there were a couple weird incidents, like the one night we were by the fire and you were up late with Dave here and I came downstairs and you were like all over the place. I mean, I don't know what that was a combination of. I'm not sure what you were doing. I don't know if you remember that, but you were definitely under the influence of more than just alcohol. I'm not quite sure what that was, but you were like totally out of it. And then I feel as the summer progressed, as we approach, like towards the end of the summer, you hurt your back at work and we went to see Old Crow Medicine Show at a super cool venue in Pennsylvania, I think it was.
Yeah, that was awesome.
And had a good trip. But then that night, your back was really, really bad. And the ride home, you kind of just, reclined the seat and you were in a lot of pain. And you continued to be in a lot of pain for a while. And then I remember you went to see, after, suffering for a couple days, you went to see my sister Julie, who's a chiropractor. And miraculously, you were better, which normally with chiropractic, it takes like multiple times to go. But you're like, nope, I think it did the trick. And you were like up and bouncing around. And I was like, that is really odd. I'm like, Julie is good.
A miracle.
But she's good. But usually one session that quickly when you're in that much pain doesn't do it. I obviously don't know the exact timeline, but I feel like that's when, and maybe I'm incorrect, but I feel like that's when it became a little bit more excessive. I don't know.
No, that's definitely true. I think, once it started really, helping my back and I was still able to work, I think at that point, by the time my back was done, it was just, I was so used to having them. I was like, oh, this is great. This makes me feel like I'm not wasting my life away. This, this job and whatever else I'm doing, like, it makes me feel like I'm somebody.
Yeah.
Really, essentially what it was.
Yeah, and I mean, our relationship was quite different by that point. I know we had a couple conversations about like things moving forward, if I remember correctly. And I feel like instead of worrying about our relationship at that point, I felt like I became a private detective. Like I felt like I was constantly investigating. Like I wasn't really, I would say, worried about our relationship so much as if I was more worried about like
Trying to
figuring
it out.
something out, like figuring it out. Like and honestly, that whole fall that's where all my energy went, like figuring it out, because there was like just weird shit going on in the house. Like a $250 sum of money went missing. And, we had the whole household team meeting, family conversation about it. And then, different things, Sam's wallet, Mary's wallet, like and I felt like that's what I turned into, because there was no way. Obviously my gut knew it was you, but my gut didn't want to know it was you. So I felt like I still needed to investigate. And of course, first and foremost, I wanted to make sure, I'm like, is this a sign that one of my children has a problem? Is this like an opportunity to like intervene before something gets bad, and did a lot of like investigating of them. So I felt like I was honestly like for at least 3 solid months a private investigator. And the weird thing is, I went pretty in depth in investigating my children, but for you, there was definitely more I could have done and investigated, but I didn't.
And you feel like that was kind of just I know, but don't want to know. I
think it could have been. I think of like the missteps along the way. There was a lot of shit that was shady, and I never called your sister, called your mom. Like, I think of so many things that could have been done, which, that's the way it played out, and it is what it is. But I feel like I was far more, my children were under much more scrutiny than you were. But then I also felt, as your sister and I have talked about this, and I definitely felt this was, well, if I don't trust him, I don't love him. And if I'm going to start looking through his shit, that really hit me when your sister was on the podcast, because I think that's exactly where I was. Like, if I start going through his stuff, then I'm his ex-wife, then I'm the crazy girlfriend, then I'm the crazy one. And I think you did a pretty good job at times of making me feel crazy when I would confront you about it. Like, oh, I'm the drug addict, like kind of putting it off on me. Like, this is what you always wanted. And I think a lot of times too. Yeah, it was. And I think I felt like if I start going through his stuff, if I go down this path, then if I don't trust him, then I obviously don't love him. Like, if I'm going to start doing this. And I honestly think that held me back a little bit in scrutinizing you a lot. And you were pretty good, when we had our family conversations, our team meeting conversations, I remember vividly when Mary's wallet went missing, you were really good at projecting like, Mary, you lose shit all the time. And I was like, Mary does lose shit all the time. And you know what I mean? And, and I think back to that, and I think I wanted to believe something so badly that I was listening to my intuition, but I would just kind of like shove it back down there.
It was, yeah.
Every time it was like, warning sign. I would just kind of like push it back down, like, don't be that crazy girlfriend. Don't be, don't
be that
you're
chick.
Going to start going through stuff. And I didn't call anybody, because once again, and I don't know why, because I've reached this point where I feel like I don't care as much about what other people think, but why I didn't call your family. I don't know if Michelle was in the background of her being crazy. So I don't know. I don't think so, but I think most of it sums up to I didn't want to know what I wanted to know is really what it comes down to.
Yeah, and I feel like almost an addict's loved one, there we go, has that point of, I know something's wrong, but I don't want to know something's wrong. And I think that is a stage. I don't think I've talked to anybody who doesn't have a stage like that with their family or girlfriend, wife, whatever it is. Husband, doesn't matter. Yeah, somebody knew something was wrong and just ignored it because they didn't really want to.
That whole fall, you were here, but you weren't here. Multiple times I would wake up at night and you were not in bed. I'm assuming you were down here. Honestly, you could have been out of the house. I don't know, but you were not sleeping. One of our favorite things to do together is to like eat together. You were still cooking here and there, but you were not sitting down and eating. Our physical relationship was pretty much, maybe here and there would be, like I said, glimmers of the old Sean, but for the most part, physically, we were not what we were prior. If you're picking up what I'm laying down.
Oh, I'm picking it up, baby.
All right. And I would say you physically, your physical appearance, like, I don't know how many times I said to you when we were in our bedroom and you were getting changed about like your weight,
how skinny
you were. Ridiculously skinny. And, there was that time in our bedroom where we did have that conversation. You said, well, what do you think is going on? And I said, I think you're addicted to something bigger. And I laid it out for you what my intuition had been telling me all along. And you started crying and you're like, okay, that's what you've always wanted. I'm the drug addict. You're painting me. And you were crying during this conversation as you were like putting stuff into a bag. And I was like, where are you going? What are you packing? And you're like, I don't know.
I always like to pack a bag.
Yeah,
when
you
we're
just started
arguing.
packing when we're arguing all the time as if you had a plan or you were going somewhere. I'm like, where are you going? We're having a conversation. And the whole time we were in the bedroom at this one particular time, you were just sobbing. And that's like an image that hasn't left me. And I think, oh my God, if I would have like done more at that point. But I, once again, don't think.
What could you have done?
And I think you did leave. I think you went and stayed with Megan for a little bit. Yeah, I think you left. And then you came back and you were turning a whole new leaf. You came up with this plan. You were going to start like giving me money every month, and you had just had everything was going to change. You had a whole new outlook when you came back. Yeah,
it was a change, man.
You were changed. You were. And I honestly, I don't remember how long you were at Meg's. It wasn't that long.
I think a couple of days.
Yeah, it wasn't very long. I mean, even in the depths of your addiction and everything, I mean, our connection has always maintained. So you weren't gone for very long. And I remember we took a walk, which is also one of our favorite things to do and converse. And, you laid out the whole plan for me. And, all this money you were going to give me, which I don't even know. I don't remember that being part of our argument. But I think one of my biggest...
money was something I always felt guilty about.
Yeah.
And I just always would say something about it.
But I think your addiction, whether it was to alcohol or whatever, always inhibited that, because that was one of our arguments we used to have. Like, all right, you don't have money to contribute to bills, but you're buying 6-packs and you're buying weed and you know what I mean? I think that was always something. So I'm thinking that's where it came from, but I don't know. I just remember you'd laid out a plan for me and these were all the things that were going to change.
Got right on those.
You did. Yeah. I think something went missing shortly.
5 minutes later.
Yeah. I think that's how that went. And then, I don't know if you want to comment on that before, like the big revelation.
The big revelation? Yeah, no, I think it was funny how we come up with all these plans. I've done that my whole life with everything, even things that didn't have anything to do with something bad like addiction, just these beautiful, wonderful ideas, creative ideas and everything else. And I'd have it all right, this is what I'm going to do. I got this. I can do that, and never do it. But as far as like addiction's concerned, and you'll hear this with any addict, there's so many moments along the line where, all right, I'm going to, even with pills, all right, so Monday, sitting out there high. Monday, I'm going to. It's so easy to quit doing drugs when you're high.
Yeah,
it's always easy to say, yeah, all right, I can do this. And you'd get the plan out. All right, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to get myself off of these. I'm going to be fine. I got this. This is good. And we always have that plan. And literally, 5 minutes later, the 8 pills I wanted to spread out for the fucking week to slowly get off, and so I'm not super feeling like shit, are gone. I have one left. How the fuck did I get here? Like all of a sudden, even with heroin, it was like, all right, I'm going to split this gram up. I'm going to just do a little bit out of this bag and save the rest for tomorrow. And to do a little bit in 2 hours after that. All right, I'm just going to do a little bit more and I'm going to save the rest for tomorrow. And literally you have nothing left, by the end of the night. And it's a constant thing.
Yeah.
As an addict. Like there's no, and it comes back to, it literally is a human, something is taken over you. I mean, it literally is. Like the times I've broken in here, I guess broken in is the word, even though I had a key. But, I took a key or still had keys when I was out of here and came in and took I was literally crying that I didn't want to do this. I knew it was get caught. I knew you would know it was me. I knew everybody was going to find out, but and I just didn't want to do it, but I still did. And it has this some sort of control. Can't explain it. And that's the thing, one of the biggest things hard to translate into people who have never had that.
Mm-hmm.
Because even when I sat down with Natalie on Saturday, she's asking her father, you've lost your relationship with your wife, almost 40 years you're married. You've lost your 2 daughters now. What does it take? You've lost your job. You're half owner of this construction company or whatever it was. What does it take for somebody to wake up and all right, I need to change this? And it's so hard to say. There's not one special plan, and it's so difficult to get to that point.
Yeah.
Which is insane. But we always have that plan of how we're going to get off and do our thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, obviously at that point you weren't telling me this is my plan because you were not admitting that you were doing anything, but it was your plan to make things better for us going forward, was more of what, I remember you were super pumped on the walk. You had a different attitude than you had had in a long time. And I was like, all right, of course, because I wanted to be optimistic because I loved you so much that I was like, all right, we're going to see. This sounds positive. And the funny thing is I think, and I don't even know why I'm laughing about this, but I guess we can laugh now. But I remember like a couple days later, you gave me like $200 towards what you told me you were going to give me, which I wasn't asking for, but I was like, all right, if this is what he wants to do and to change things has always been an issue between us. We'll see. And then I think shortly after you stole some of the money, and I was like, did he give me that much? Maybe. And I remember justifying it in my head. Like, I knew what you gave me. And then when some of it was missing, I was trying to justify in my head, like, no, maybe he didn't give me that much. Like, maybe I miscounted. Like, because I was like, there's no way he'd steal it after he just gave it to me.
Oh, that's another classic move.
That's another, classic move. Yeah. That was something that happened down the road too. But anyway, yeah, that was kind of funny. I was like, no, maybe this is all he gave me, which I remember that part of the plan. But when I really, I guess, thought something bigger was going, so, your physical appearance, deteriorated. And then we were eating here or eating at our house for my daughter's birthday, which she requested a big pot of soup, and you cooked her a big pot of soup, and we were all here. And then, you've always been one that kind of is doing stuff. You're not sitting down and eating right away. But then once you did, you took like 2 spoonfuls of soup, nodded off, and then went into the bathroom and were throwing up. But the bathroom was not far from where we were eating. So we were like, nice.
No, yeah, it's right there.
And at the time, you have told me in the past about your stomach issues that you had prior. So you're kind of like, I don't know what's going on with me. I have stomach issues. And we talked about, going to get blood work done because there must be something really wrong done. And you were like, yeah, I'm going to do that.
Get right on that.
Get on it. Yeah. And then a couple weeks later, right around this time of 2017, a year ago, we went to Dave and Diana's to do a podcast because you were super pumped about podcasting, and we came up with a great idea for a podcast together.
Mm-hmm. What were we going to call that again?
Is This It?
Is This It? That's right.
Yeah, and we did a couple episodes. We did one in the basement together. And that was the other thing that I failed to mention. You retreated a lot. You set up your little den in the basement. Now I call it your opium den.
Opium
but
den,
you retreated a lot to the basement. That was the other big sign. Like, you were not around up here. You were always down in the basement doing something. And you set it up, you put lights up, but you were down there a lot. Like, you were not really part of this household at that point. So we go to Dave and Diana's Niagara Falls, and you're super pumped. All 4 of us were going to podcast. We had a good dinner together. We just get the podcast set up, and we're talking about some, pretty heavy stuff. We're exchanging ideas. We were maybe 15 to 20 minutes in.
Yeah, it wasn't far.
It wasn't far. Yeah. And you nodded off, and Dave kind of looked at me. I think you only had 1 beer at that point, and you didn't. Dave shared an edible, and you didn't want any, which I was like, he never refuses an edible. Which you weren't smoking as much either, but you nodded off. And Dave and I looked at each other, and then he was like, Sean, come on, this is your thing. And you're like, oh. And you kind of got back into it a little bit. And then you nodded off again. And then, you just ran out and threw up and got sick. And that ended the podcast pretty much for that night. And, Diane asked me a couple questions about, like, has he been sick or what was going on or, that kind of stuff. Because it was just her and I, because Dave followed you outside. And pretty much the ride home, you passed out. We had no conversation. And that week, I kind of gave you an ultimatum. And I was like, we are going to Quest. I'm going to pay for your blood work. And we're going to see what's wrong with you. And because then Dave and Diana, when you came back in, were talking like, Sean, you're not looking so good. We feel like you should get tested or whatever. You started talking about your stomach issues again. Yeah. You had these, you've always had these stomach issues. So
just for the record, I really did have some stomach issues.
No,
back.
I know, but
no, I know.
I get it. So you promised me it was going to be December 22nd, and we were going to go to Quest, and I was going to go with you, and you were going to get blood work done, and we were going to get to the bottom of all of this. And I think it was 2 days before. I think I was actually even going to take off work, if I remember correctly, and we were going to go.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. And it was 2 days before. It would have been December 22nd. And you were like, you know, the kids are coming home. The blood work results are going to come back right when they come home. I don't want to get bad news when the kids are here at Christmas time.
I don't remember that.
Oh, yeah.
I don't remember how I got out of that. That's what I said.
You had the whole thing. You said, you know, I know something bad's going on. I know something's going on, but I don't want to get those results when the kids are here. Is there any way we can just wait until after the kids are gone and Christmas and all that kind of stuff? And a red flag should have been that you cared about Christmas, but that should have been a big red flag. But you, you know, said, is there any way? And I mean, we hit, like, I made the appointment for you and everything. Like, we were going. And you got out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we didn't go for blood work. But then really at that point, you know, shortly after Christmas, I mean, at most family functions and whatnot, you really weren't present. I would say that would be the theme of the fall of 2017 is you were not present. In multiple aspects. Like you were physically there, but you were not present. And once your children came home, you really kind of went and stayed with your parents. So I would see you if I went there or we did something together, but you weren't living here. So you came back here on New Year's Day. Like January 1st, you stayed here and the kids were still here. And you were going to leave, we were leaving, you were going to PAFCO and I was going to school together. And we always left around the same time. A lot of times you left before me and you said, well, I think I'm going to finish this cup of coffee. I'm going to wait to go in. So I left for work ahead of you. And I think this was a Wednesday. And then you left or whatever. And then Mary, my children came home on Wednesday and Mary came downstairs and she was like, I have money and a bunch of gift cards missing. And I just like broke down. And I texted you. I knew at that point, like there was I didn't not know at that point. And I texted you and said, you know, Mary had some money and some gift cards missing. And you called me. You didn't text me back and you were angry. Like, what the hell? What's going on? You know, how does this keep happening? And you were like super angry. And I was just, at that point, I was just resigned. And I was like, I don't know. And I would think that, I mean, the real Sean would have known the kind of the tone that I had. I don't know if you were aware of it, but I didn't really even respond to any of your anger. I just said, like I was just very resigned because I knew. And you were angry. And then I think maybe like a couple hours later, you texted me like, did she find anything yet? And I just texted back, nope. And that's when I had texted Dave and just said, if there's any point that you can come and talk to me this weekend, I would appreciate it. Or if I could come and see you. Because I knew at that point, I knew like there was no way to not know. Like nobody was here. So that's when it was like, it confirmed it for me.
Yeah, it was totally out in the open.
It was. And I'm pretty sure, I don't know if I went to work the next day, which is very rare for me to not go to work.
Yeah, I know.
But I think
4,000 sick days. I can never get you to use one.
Yeah, I think it all just kind of was like this cloud above me and the cloud just started pouring. Like, I think I remember that feeling of like, yeah, like all just everything that I was trying to shove down just came right.
Just came up.
Yeah, just came right up. Yeah. So yeah, Dave agreed to come over. And it was funny because Dave, you know, came in very apprehensive and, you know, started out by saying like, I just want you to know Sean is like my brother. You know, we've been through everything together. Almost like, I think kind of defending you, like thinking I was going to be like, I don't know, trash talking you or looking for him to take my side in something. I'm thinking was what maybe he was prepared for, which wasn't my intent at all. And I said, honestly, Dave, that's why I called you, is because of that reason. It wasn't, I'm not looking for you to take my side. There's no side here to take. And I kind of laid out everything for him that had been happening. And he laid out everything for me that he and I had never talked about. And the reason I called him also was because he had seen a couple weeks prior your
when
episode.
We were over there.
Yeah. So I knew he would be someone that I could say like that already had some evidence, I guess, of like, here's what I think is going on. And then he illuminated me to a couple things about, did you know that Sean and Corey weren't talking, which I had no idea because the only time I would see Corey is through you. And if you weren't talking, you would have had to have told me that.
Yeah.
And then I think Corey might have come over later, I think, but had said, you know, he hadn't been talking to you in a while and kind of his end of the story. And then the next day is when you were going to be flying the kids home. And I'd said to Dave, I'm supposed to get them from the airport, and I don't know if I can. And you and I were still talking, but it was very minimal.
That's when I really knew something was, that it was probably, the cat was probably out of the bag.
Yeah, it was very minimal.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was something going on at your family's house prior to the kids going. I think I came over during the day to see them, and you weren't there. Not sure where you were, but I came to see them and like say goodbye to them during the day because I knew I wouldn't be able to sit through the it was like the weight of everything was just like on me. And then the next day when you left, David called Megan, and Megan had a lot going on, but Megan knew, I think when Dave called her, she was crying already. And then he had asked your parents if we could come over when you were gone and talk. Yeah, that was rough.
I know.
Yeah, that was a tough afternoon. Because the magnitude of it really hit me. I think it hit everybody.
Yeah.
And that was there. But none of us had talked prior, and I think that would be my biggest regret and the thing that I've learned most going forward. Is kind of that honest and open communication. Yeah, because I wasn't. I mean, so many times that you told me like, oh, I'm going to see my mom or I'm with my mom, where I was like, is he? But I wasn't going to be, once again, the crazy girlfriend who texted your mom like, is Sean with you right now? I remember there was a point too where I think you might have pulled the crazy girlfriend card or called me Michelle when you were, I thought it was really shady. Your cousin Chad was home and you were out, and I honestly can't remember logistically what it was, but I think I was calling you out on where you were or where you said you would be, and you got super defensive, and I honestly think you called me Michelle. I'm pretty sure. And
that's an insult.
That didn't go over well. And once again, that reaffirmed like, oh, maybe I am the crazy girlfriend who's like, which I'm definitely not.
No.
You know, I'm not someone that is like that at all, which is something that I'm more cognizant of and have worked on. But yeah, that day was rough. And I think I wrote you a letter basically about, you know, what realization I came to. And Dave had agreed to pick you up from the airport because I had said, I think you called me after the kids were in Michelle's hands and told me what time you were getting in. And to be honest with you, I don't think at that point we knew what you were doing, but I remember having somewhat of a sense of relief that, you know, the kids were good. And Dave had said, you know, he would take care of the airport, and we kind of somewhat had a discussion with your parents about, you know, what was going to happen. And I remember there were a lot of tears, of course. And I do vividly remember your mom when we were like getting ready to go, you know, we were all crying, and she had said, you know, we should just stop crying, because who knows, this could be the point. 5 years from now, we're going to be, you know, at a wedding, and we're all going to be laughing about this whole thing. And we all like faintly laughed, and we're like, oh, yeah. Cool story. But yeah, I vividly remember her saying that in her typical way of like adding like humor and some kind of levity to the situation. And yeah, so yeah, I mean, you can kind of take over from that point of what you walked into, but you know, Dave had communicated with me of like when you landed or whatever, and you know, kind of told me when the cat was out of the bag. The old cat. Yeah. And I was pretty shocked because I was not thinking heroin, because of course the common perception that you have of heroin is someone like under a bridge.
Yeah.
You know, and I was pretty blown away by that revelation, that's what it had gotten to, because I was thinking, how can I have been living with a heroin addict? How could he have been functioning? Like I just pictured someone who was on heroin was always like on the couch, doped up, like not functioning, and that's not how you were.
No,
and then it amazed me, and you know, I did a lot of research and a lot of learning from that point. But I was like, how was I living with it? Like, never crossed my mind that that's what was going on. Like, I thought pills, that's what I was going with all the way through, which is essentially the same thing.
Yeah.
Now I know that, but because it's prescription and it's from, you know,
it's different.
The pharmaceutical company, you're like, oh, well, that's much better.
It's funny. So many people who are addicted to pills always be like, oh, that's disgusting. I'll never do heroin.
Yeah.
It's the same people who do coke, you know, snort coke all the time or whatever, and be like, oh, I would never do crack. That's disgusting.
Yeah.
You know, but.
Which is the same thing.
Yeah, that's some heavy shit. And it's been so humbling for me, like, to sit down with my sister and sit down with you now, and then eventually probably my mother. And you really don't realize until, like, I'll sit here and I'll go through and edit this. And when I edited the one with my sister, how much you put the people who love you, like, it's not just you that gets hurt in addiction. You know, the addict, it's everybody who loves you is going with it.
Yeah.
And Megan said in the podcast, because I remember we did a session with my counselor at Horizon Village, and, you know, he said you can never touch a drug and have addiction totally flip your world upside down.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's what I did. There's just so many people that I've done that to. I think, like I said, you probably the most, my mom, sister, and my dad. Obviously, those are probably the closest ones that have been affected. But there's just, I mean, the roots of that go out. I mean,
the ripple
forever.
effect is huge.
It's crazy.
That's what I mean with you doing this and spreading this message, like I told you. I mean, in a conservative estimate, it has to be more than half the population that is affected, even if it's through a ripple and not like directly connected to the addiction.
Yeah, and it's insane. And I don't know, like, to try to make this somewhat of an uplifting thing because it was just so, I mean, such a dark and heavy place to be in. But just like the weight of that, I mean, I remember, towards the end, the last few months, the weight of addiction is just when you're consumed by every thought, when you end up hurting people that you love so much. I mean, it's no secret to anybody who knows me how much I love you and how much I care about you and how I call you my best friend and how I want to spend the rest of my life with you. And everything I do, I think about you. And I still couldn't stop doing those things, which is insane.
Yeah, which is so interesting to hear from your perspective, because everything that I was feeling starting in the summer of 2017 through the fall was real. But it's interesting how the mind makes up excuses, you know, and I knew, said if something doesn't change, this is done. Like, this isn't going to progress forward. And obviously something pretty significant changed. But, you know, at the time I remember thinking, like, you know, this can't sustain itself.
No,
and
there's no way.
You were as close as we've always been. It's interesting to know what was driving your thinking, because I knew it was something, but from your perspective, like, if that's all you can think about, then your behavior now makes perfect sense. Where at the time I was like I said, I was a detective for 3 months, like trying to figure out, I was a psychologist, I was a detective. I mean, I was so all consumed that, to be honest with you, when January 6th came and, you know, everything you know, came out, I will tell you the sense of relief. Like, it's kind of a weird feeling, but I would say, like, the relief coupled with the sadness was like, holy shit, this is like the first time I've been able to like I told, like, it's, you know, that song lyric, like, I felt like I was constantly holding my breath. Like, all right, today, what's going to go missing? What's going to happen? Like, holding my breath, like, are one of the kids going to come down and say anything? Like, what's going to happen? And every like that constant on edge. Yeah. Everything. Like, what's going to happen? And like, when that came out like that, like even April 12th, when you were in jail, I will say I breathed the biggest sigh of relief because you weren't dead or someone didn't shoot you because you went in their house, or Like it was like this huge weight. It's like breathing out like this, constantly holding your breath, waiting for the next ball to drop. And I would say like there were two that, the January 6th was a moment where I was like, oh, I don't have to investigate anymore. I'm off the job. And I will say April 12th when you were really rock bottom, in my opinion, of, all right, well, he's not on the streets. He's not going to overdose today. Like breathing that out, like he's probably sick, and then having a little part of me like, good.
Yeah, good. I hope so, asshole. Still my Bose speaker.
Yeah, little bastard. But yeah, the breathing that, like, oh man, like, and then it's almost so all consuming that you're like, all right, what am I going to do now? All right, yeah, what's my focus now?
But it's crazy the relief I had, even a little bit in the jail, is psychologically challenging as that is. I mean, it was just like, oh my gosh, I don't have to it's crazy. Just naming something, just putting a name to it.
Yeah.
Is one of the most important things. It's the first step, obviously. It's one of the most important things and biggest things and hardest things to do. Is I have this issue, and this goes with addiction. It goes with any problems you have to fix in life. Any, opinions you have that are different than a significant other, whatever it is. It goes with anything. It's amazing what naming it does. Just, all right, here's the issue. Even you could be completely wrong in the situation, but here's the issue. This is what I'm feeling. This is it. Now I named it. So now I can do something with it. Because you can't do something, you can't do anything with something you don't know what it is. So naming it is just like, oh, what a sigh of relief. I mean, the first time just saying, I'm Sean and I'm an addict, and truly meaning it, truly knowing it, is one of the biggest reliefs ever. Just saying it. Okay, wow, I can put this out there now. All right. So now I know I have a problem. Because even to myself, again, eating, breathing, thinking, nothing but, all right, how am I going to get high? How am I going to sustain getting high? How am I going to keep getting high? And what do I need to do to get it? And like just every waking moment of the day is consumed with just fulfilling your addiction. Like addicts are not lazy people whatsoever.
No.
They just have priorities, obviously, are so effing backwards.
Yeah.
But we'll do anything, figure out any tricks and get money any way, we possibly can. But to have that, just like to name it and just be like, all right, it was just such a relief to finally get through. All right, now I can actually work on this. And obviously I had to be completely forced into doing that, through jail.
And that was my struggle too, because everything you read is, you can't force someone to address this. They have to want it. And that
Which
was
is
probably
partly true.
Yeah.
It's definitely true. Like if I didn't want to change, I mean, I remember being in jail and laying in my bed in there, if that's what you want to call it, and thinking, all right, well, I can continue down this road of self-pity, having a chip on my shoulder at the world, screwing everybody over, just doing what I need to do, numbing life, not doing anything with it, and just continue down here. Or I can go this other way and choose to change, choose to be positive, choose to start figuring out how to accept myself, love myself, forgive myself, have confidence in myself. I can choose how to do all these things and do what I should do and live a fulfilled, content, happy life. And that's why I remember laying in there. And I remember saying, whether I don't know if Christine is still going to be around after this or not, I have no idea. I can't communicate with her. But either way, I have to make a decision. What am I going to do? And obviously, I had to choose, and I chose, and here I am.
Yeah.
And to kind of, again, make this towards an uplifting thing, it's been a necessary journey for me to really, I feel like a totally different human being at this point. Like, I don't even, looking back, I'm like, I have no idea. Even before the heroin and pills, that person who was there, I have no idea who that person was.
I remember being nervous about that I don't know if I've ever known a sober Sean. Am I going to like sober Sean? I do. I remember thinking that because I don't think in our entire time together,
there's
you've been
always
truly
beer
sober.
and pot.
There's always something
Yeah.
around. Like it was never, and I was thinking like,
what if he's boring?
Yeah, I'm like, am I going to like sober Sean? Because
I
don't
up with
know.
Because I'm sober.
Yeah, I don't know if I ever knew sober Sean. I don't think I did.
No, definitely not.
Yeah. There was always something.
Yeah, definitely.
So
yeah.
I don't think, if alcohol was our discussion prior to that, I do remember thinking that of, yeah, this will be interesting because I don't think I've ever known a sober Sean. Like, who is sober Sean? But I mean, obviously after January, I'm not sure how long you went, but you relapsed.
Mm-hmm.
You
It was
weren't
less
living
than a
here.
month. Yeah.
Yeah,
You
you
was at my parents.
Yeah. You weren't living here, but we were in communication. We were talking. You know, and there were some signs that you relapsed, not overly vivid, but obviously being a newbie to the whole addiction parameter, you of course want to believe, you know, you played a pretty convincing game of being able to do it yourself and how good you were doing, and you're going to best self and you're telling me about all your
Where's my
classes you were
notebook?
taking. Yep. Your not filled in notebook.
People still love that. When I showed Andy and Patrick that notebook I had, the stickers on the front of it had a story of that I was, you know, my life written down. I actually spent time to write stuff down and put stuff in there, and I'd leave a couple things on top of it, but around so my mom and parents could see it. And you know, I remember laughing and bringing it up to my mom. I was like, I would lay this around so you could find it and look at it. And she'd be like, yeah, you jackass. I did look at it a few times. And oh my gosh, it was just another, you know, going back to, this kind of takes me to the point of talking about how just stopping abstinence is not really being sober. Essentially, it's stopping doing a drug and not dealing with anything else doesn't do anything. Changes nothing really, other than the fact that you're not using.
Right.
And I mean, like, whatever, I'm just throwing out a percentage. A very high percentage of time, you are gonna slip back up and go back into, you know, your use. And that was exactly it. I had all this guilt and shame from taking from stuff from your kids and stealing from you and my parents and my sister and all this shit, and didn't deal with any of the guilt, didn't deal with any of the shame, didn't deal with any of my lack of confidence and love for myself, didn't deal with any guilt from my divorce, didn't deal with anything. And then sure enough, well, how do I numb this? And then, all right, well, I know how to numb it very quickly and feel better about it. So that's what, you know, I don't think it was 30 days. I say a month, but it's probably a few days shy of that.
Yeah.
Of being sober. And I mean, it's a totally new ballgame. And again, I think jail is what I needed.
Yeah. I mean, you know, there are definitely signs that you relapsed. And I would say when I came home from my trip to Florida is when the you know what hit the fan again. Because once again, you know, you would have thought I learned the lesson of not communicating with your family, but I think you were doing a slightly better job of covering it up, covering your tracks a little bit. But, you know, it just so happened that when I got home from Florida, your sister and I had a baby shower together and we drove together. And we didn't talk about you at all on the way there, but on the way home you came up and I could tell that I hit something with Megan, but I wasn't quite sure what it was because I dropped her off, I'm pretty sure. So I came home after seeing Megan's reaction and went through some stuff and realized that some stuff was missing. And I called you on the phone and I was set to go to your parents because we were going to celebrate Megan's birthday. And I just started crying and you didn't deny it. You said, yep. And you said, yep, I'm a piece of shit. Yeah, I did it. And I couldn't really come up with anything. I just, you know, was crying and you're like, I can't keep doing this to you. And I said, I can't keep going through this. And I want to say we just both kind of hung up. And I think after everything, you know, came out with your, you know, because your family did come over for Megan's birthday. But I think after that point, everything came out with your family again. Mm-hmm. So Megan, I want to say it could have been a conversation. It could have been a text. I don't know. Because I will say, I think, did I not go into work the next day? Which would be shocking if that were 2 days. So you owe me 2 days, 2 of my sick days back. But anyway.
You owe me a lot more of your sick days for us spending time together. Thank you.
But, you know, Megan conveyed kind of what happened with your family or whatever. So we didn't speak. I think you told Megan, you know, to kind of convey that, you know, you couldn't keep doing this to me, which we had already kind of agreed to earlier. I think you were mentioned something about moving to Florida, but we didn't talk from that Sunday. And then I got home from work on a Thursday, so we hadn't talked at all any of those days. I think Dave might have called me because he had seen you just to kind of update me. Maybe Megan sent me a couple texts, but we directly did not communicate. And then on that Thursday, I don't know what it was, but you sent me a text after us not speaking since Sunday morning. And that rang a bell with me because I'm like, why is he texting me today? He hasn't texted me at all. And your text said something about that you were coming over to give me a letter. I think I texted you, are you moving to Florida? And you said, yeah, I'm figuring that out now or whatever. And I don't know what it was, but this warning bell went off in my head. And I'm like, is he prepping me to be here in the house? I don't know. It was like this other voice went off. So I started looking around the house, and I, like at that moment, like your text, it was like a trigger for me. I was like, holy shit, this is missing. This is missing. This is missing. And when I got home that day,
Christ.
Jade had like a bunch of shit in the middle of the living room floor, which she doesn't do. And the only time she does it is if she sees you and you go and she doesn't like get a treat to distract her.
Jade is the dog, by the way.
Yeah. So I was like, that's weird that Jade has all this stuff out. Someone must have been here today that like she doesn't do that unless, in a certain scenario. But even then I didn't. So I started looking around and I started realizing all this shit was missing. And I texted you and I said, you were in the effing house today. And you were like, what? I was down at Best Self all day or some bullshit. Something along
Just
those
lying
lines.
for the point of lying. It's like, I have you on video doing this. No, it wasn't me.
Yeah, and I don't think we exchanged much at that point.
No.
I think I just hung up, and a voice, I'm going to say it's my intuition because it was not my own voice and it was not my head, said, you have to call the cops or he will be dead by the end of this week. And I stood there and I called your mom and I told her, I said, Sean was in the house today. This is missing. This is missing. And we were both crying. And she said, you have to do what I can't do. You have to take care of you and your kids. You have to do, if this is, you have to do what you feel you have to do. Like this is crossed the line now. So I hung up with your mom and I still, had the phone in my hands, and, you always think with not having much experience with, an addiction on that level of, well, maybe if, I talk to him, I can get him to go with his mom, to ECC, because your mom was saying that she got ECMC, excuse me. Yeah. And that she had gotten you to agree to that. And, maybe that's going to be the turning point. And once again, for 2 times in a row within, 20 minutes, this voice came that was not my own and said, if you do not call the police, he will be dead by the end of this week. Like it was like just very matter of fact. And I dialed 911 without even thinking of it a second time because it was so it was convincing me the first time, but when the same voice came to me a second time and said the same exact thing, I didn't even look back on doing it. I mean, obviously I was upset doing it. And then it was interesting because after I called the cops and the cops were here, your mom called me and she said, I just talked to Sean. He said he's going to come to ECMC with me in the morning. And I said, Barb, it's over. I said, we can't do this anymore. He's not going to go to ECMC. He's not going to stay in ECMC. And she was really upset and said, he said in the morning we can pack his stuff and we can go. And I said, I don't think that's going to do the trick. I said, I don't think ECMC is our solution here. And she was like, okay. The conversation was pretty brief because I think the cops were here at the time. And then I had to go to that day. Sucked. I had to go with the cops to a couple pawn shops and saw a couple of the items from my house there. So that was upsetting. Yeah. And then, they kept assuring me I had to go in and give a statement. And I said over and over again that I'm not looking for him, to spend the rest of his life in jail. I'm looking for him to get help. He's an addict. And they said, this process is going to take a little bit. It's going to drag out. And then obviously the process didn't take very long. They both assured me and Megan that it was going to be like this, kind of like a process. And there was no process to it.
No,
really.
There was none. Yeah.
That's the one thing I've learned about.
Well, that's because also I stupidly went in and just told them everything. That's why. I think I was done. Like, I seen the cops pull up. I was in the back of my parents' yard having a cigarette. I grabbed my stuff, went to the back of the yard to hop over into Hubble. and I had my foot up on the fence. And speaking of like intuition, I was just like, something came in. I was like, just stop. Like, what are you going to do? Just stop. And I just went back and kept smoking my cigarette in the yard. And they walked back. The cops walked back. But I was just done. I mean, in hindsight, looking back to see how I almost could have spent 4 years upstate because I stole, a couple thousand, not even a couple $1,000 worth of stuff. That was fucking crazy to me. Like, there was one point in jail, like, did I fuck up by doing, like, saying, because I know, you shouldn't say anything, get a lawyer, do that.
Yeah.
But, I'm thinking,
told you that ahead of time. But.
I'm thinking, whatever, I was literally thinking, okay, this is like maybe $1,500 all around worth of stuff. Like, this can't be that serious. So I was just like, let's just get this done with. And, that almost backfired on me.
Mm-hmm.
I was just done, though. And my voice was like, stop, just running. There was that voice of just, don't do this anymore. Just, you have to face this now. And, so that was that kind of same thing kind of happened to me with that voice of, all right, I think it's time to man up a little bit here for once in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And, face a lot of things. And that's kind of really not where my journey began, but really the transformation began. That very moment, which I remember very vividly, having my foot over that, on the top of that fence to hop over it. And like, I was just like, no, I'm not going to do this. I did. I think a lot of it too was just, I was fed up with, I'll say hurting, everybody, but mainly you. I know you didn't deserve this. And despite what it looked like throughout all that, I still loved you and cared about you so much, as I do now. And I know it didn't seem like it, but it was always there. There's always that, my connection with you, that spark in my life for you, that everything I did, and along with always thinking about addiction, there was so much of my guilt was I'm hurting this woman who loves me more than anything. And I can say you're probably, truly the first human being that I've ever actually felt that with, that this woman completely loves me for him. And that was kind of one of my biggest things for knowing that, I do deserve to be loved and accepted and forgiven, is because, again, from my mom and sister and parents as well as, but really mainly you, that you still loved me through all of this. And there had to be something in me that was good, deserved it. Because for me doing everything I did and you still loving me the way you did, there has to be something. And I know I'll have to find it. And, sure enough, obviously throughout the last 9 months now, I think I'm going on almost 9 months clean in a few days. I'm, finding that more and more every day.
But it goes to prove the point, because countless times I would tell you how much I loved you, how much potential I saw in you and worth I saw in you, but it doesn't really matter how much you say it to somebody. Mm-hmm. I mean, our whole situation, I would say, illustrates that point much more clearly than most situations. Is
yes,
you can say it and you can see it, but if the other person doesn't, it really doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, and that goes with anything. Self-love, self-acceptance, also admitting that you're an addict. I mean, you can tell somebody, dude, you got a problem. No, I don't. What are you talking about? Like, it's the same thing as saying, dude, you're an awesome human being. Like, you have so much to offer the world. No, I don't. Whatever. I mean, it's the same thing. And you have to find it for yourself. And I had to go literally into the depths of hell to come out on top and kind of find that. And that's why I kind of pulling it back too. That's why I feel like a completely different person even before my addiction was out of control. Is like I look back, I don't even recognize that individual back then whatsoever. I've gone, through all this gigantic transformation. I see it in just being more assertive, playing music out in front of people. Like, just my confidence level has gone up. Doing things like sticking with this podcast for, I don't know how long I've been doing it now, since October, 2 months, to actually stick with something creative that I enjoy doing and continuously doing it is another huge sign. Continuously playing my guitar and doing stuff that I never, all these things that I did inconsistently before. One of the biggest things I see, how I can see changing me, is that, related to like music. I hear like somebody play that's awesome and I think has a better voice than me or can play guitar better than me, which is a lot of people. But I see that now and it motivates me to keep practicing and keep playing and work harder at things. As opposed to before, that would happen and be like, why am I even going to bother? I'll never be that. I'll never be able to be that good at this or that. And that goes not just music. I just use that kind of as an analogy, but it goes even like when I listen to podcasts and hear how intelligent somebody sounds or fluent and how good they sound. I'm like, oh man, I'll never be. But it just encourages me to sit down and listen more. How am I talking? How am I speaking? And it goes with anything. Now it challenges me instead of like it makes me want to give up. It's been a crazy ride, baby.
Yeah, that's to say the least. Yeah.
Going on 5 years.
Yeah.
Which is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Well, we got I always have to say the time when I go to end a podcast. Oh, we're about an hour and 15 minutes in. We're about 40 minutes in. I don't know why I ended like that. I got to stop. I'll put that on the list of no's to do on a podcast. Well, thank you for being so open and amazing.
You're welcome.
And you're the best. And thank you, everybody, for listening.
This just confirms the soul in God and faith. I'll just end by
None of those things exist, people. All right. Room 9. Check it out later.
All right, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that episode. I hope you liked it. Get online, comment about it, leave a message about it, spread it, share it with anybody you can possibly think of. Thank you so much for listening. Till next Monday, I love you guys. Have a good week. Stay positive, stay confident. Don't ever give up. And never, never think you can't do something. All right, y'all. Later.